The United States now needs to determine whether we can continue following Israel's lead in terms of how we deal with Palestinian leadership. Are we looking for Palestinian leadership that will promote an autonomous entity in the West Bank or the Gaza Strip for a period of time, knowing that ultimately it will fail, knowing ultimately there will be violence again? Or are we looking for an end of conflict and Palestinian leaders who have the support of the Palestinian public who can negotiate an agreement? The South Africans always used to say to me that if you know you're going to negotiate with your enemy for a peace agreement, you have to strengthen that enemy, because that enemy needs to be strong enough to pull their people into the peace. If, however, your aim is not to have a peace agreement, you weaken your enemy, because a weak enemy can't conclude a peace agreement with you. Now, what the Israelis have chosen to do so far is create weak Palestinian leaderships to negotiate with, instead of strong Palestinian leaderships that could bring their entire public along with a peace agreement. The United States needs to determine that we need to pursue a different path. We have our own national security interests. They're not tied up with Israeli occupation and colonization of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Even though there are many Americans who believe that Judea and Samaria are part of the biblical patrimony to the Jewish people, that is not interpreted by U.S. government officials as meaning that the United States should support an Israeli annexation of the West Bank. So how should the United States then deal with the current situation? Because what we're left with now are a bunch of pieces. We're not left with some kind of tangent hole or a very strong structure here and a strong structure there, and we have to pick and choose among them. The fact of the matter is, Mahmoud Abbas was elected president, although his term ended a few weeks ago. The Hamas was elected to parliament and is the legitimately elected Palestinian government. And Fatah and Hamas ultimately are going to have to agree together how to have a unity government. In the past, when they've tried that, the United States has been the primary power that's helped it fall apart, because it has been, under the Bush administration, we were against any inclusion of Hamas into a system, even one in which Hamas endorsed negotiations, even one in which Hamas endorsed allowing Abbas to negotiate a peace agreement. And the part of that process was because the United States under Bush was insistent that every Palestinian, in order to come to the table, acknowledge and provide the conditions of acceptance of Israel, that Israel was not yet willing to provide for the Palestinians, but to provide them all up front. So Fatah provided, we will not fight. But Fatah never asked for Israel to say they will not fight. Fatah was asked to recognize Israel's right to exist, but it never asked Israel to recognize Palestine's right to exist. So to this day, Israel hasn't recognized the right to exist of a Palestinian state. The Palestinians were asked to not engage in any acts that would damage Israel's national security interests. Israel was not asked to end settlement construction. Hamas's argument seems to be that it's not so much that, especially as the moderate wing of Hamas, and as they've attempted to present a different language than the maximalist one that they were using before, has basically said, well, we're looking more for a reciprocal agreement. We're looking for reciprocity in the process that takes us there. We actually don't want to recognize Israel, but we would like to be in the position of Ariel Sharon or Shas or Lieberman, who have said that they don't support Palestinian statehood. They don't support the peace agreements that Israel has with Jordan. But when Sharon was prime minister, even though he voted against peace with Jordan, he implemented the peace agreement with Jordan. And so Hamas has attempted to position itself, and I have no idea whether this will be successful or not, but they've attempted to position themselves in a place where they can say, we'll be like the Israeli right wing. We'll be like the Israeli right wing. We will say that it is our goal that we have some maximalist solution, but we will accept whatever the majority of our public endorses, and we will implement it. Is there room for the United States to engage in this? Well, I think we ultimately have no choice, because Hamas, in fact, now does control the Gaza Strip, and Fatah is in control of much of the West Bank, at least the autonomous parts that the Israelis have provided them. And so we're going to have to deal with everybody. How we do that in such a way that promotes an end to the conflict and that strengthens the party that we need to negotiate with, we as the United States need to negotiate with, I think is going to be a great challenge for the Mitchell team and for President Obama. Thank you.